Okay, let's talk about least privilege. First, we got to start with the concept, though, of a access graph over time when you think about an individual at a company. So on the x-axis, we're going to have how many things you have access to, right? And then on the y-axis, we have time. And what happens is you get hired, so you have a point of hiring. And what happens is you have from going no access to a company to having your like baseline birthright access. And then this goes on for a while. And then you might change teams or, move to a new project or get promoted and you get more permissions, but it's like tied to this point in time. And the interesting thing is, generally stuff you had access to on day one of your job doesn't get taken away. And then, you can imagine this goes on and on and on as a lifetime of an employee over years and years at a business. They tend to just accumulate permissions. And then obviously, in an ideal world, when it's your last day at a company, your access goes to 0. Last day. Now, obviously, as people we work in security, sometimes you find out like you got most of it, you got some of it, you got some of it, you got some of it. So, there's some problems here, but normal problems. And like this whole concept is wild. I think there's a different thing we need to introduce. It's kind of like instead of a step function graph that always accumulates, you want a set of least, like the concept of least privilege, I think, is how do you get this graph to fundamentally look different? So, you still have similar events. You get hired, you get a lot of privilege, but ideally you have, humps on a camel or the tops of a castle where you get, even if you're doing your job, you have a set of kind of productivity apps. And then you have, things you need to do your job, like, just-in-time access to different systems. And even if you change job roles, let's say you change roles here. You might actually end up, there's a little bit of back and forth where you add some things and you remove other things. And then obviously, when you leave the company, you want to go away. Now, the thing is, you need tools to do this because the natural state in a business is I get a bunch of things because I have a job I code. And just accumulate them. And when I change roles, we just add more things because we don't want to break your productivity, right? And so there's always this tension between managing what you have access to, productivity, and the processes to manage and justify access. And so I want to introduce some tools here that help you get to more of a up-down rate of standing access. And there's maybe a minor point here of why that's important. This area under the curve, if you think about it from a CSO perspective, this is risk. Because when you have entitlements and permissions to the system, there's only limited controls you have over them. Versus like when you think about JIT access to production system, the risk is time bound. And so if you don't contain that risk, it's a kind of an unbounded growth in risk, especially over large population pools of large companies. And so basically we want sets of tools to help us contain that risk and minimize it over time. So I want to talk about 3 or 4 different tools you can use to do this. So first is, if you want to get least privilege, a great starting point is to start using JIT for some systems. And not all systems are great for JIT. JIT access to your email is kind of a silly concept. You get emails all the time. I guess you need access all the time. So there's always a set of apps here that, aren't a good fit for JIT. But there are many apps that are great fits for JIT that are highest risk, right? So you think about administrative access to cloud systems, administrative access to internal databases, things that many times that like your SRE or DevOps team need access to. These are great fits for JIT, cloud infrastructure. So there are places you can deploy JIT that materially reduce risk that over time make your access graph go up and down versus being a flat line. So JIT is a great tool. A second great tool is user access reviews. And, the objective of UAR is to help you, slice off some of this graph and then establish a new baseline. The thing is, though, you need to drive a lot of automation here, because just asking a user, do you want access to a system? The users naturally respond, yes. It is very challenging to have users give up access, at least most users. So UARs are a tool to help reduce that surface area graphs, but I think you need to really be thoughtful about the automation of those UARs, the approval policies, driving user behaviors. Otherwise, they're just kind of busy work for a lot of teams. And then finally, in this space, I think you also need to think deeply about kind of ABAC and RBAC. So when you think about an employee's life cycle of business, when they start in one role and migrate to another role, there are many times, HR systems, job codes, job titles, manager reporting structure, those all get updated. And what you want is automation that says, hey, you no longer have justified access to a system. And so what do you mean by justified access? It's based on policies at our company. If you're support level 2, you have access to these systems. When you become a support manager or transfer a different department, you might have access to different systems or even less systems. And so what we need is, when that data transfer happens, you need actually your ABAC system or your RBAC system to automate changes in access control. Potentially, this can feed back to UARs where you say, hey, someone had access, they changed job roles, we triggered a UAR, that they no longer should have that system. And so these kind of three systems kind of work together to reach an outcome of, reducing risk, which again is tied to this area under the curve of your entitlement graph.